velocity. So that is one aspect of looking into kinematics. The other aspect is that what about the study of kinematics if you are doing some experiments? So let us put down this as, say, experimental perspective of kinematics. So there could be several experimental perspectives of kinematics, but the most common thread is that you are endeavoring to study the motion of the fluid. Not really the forces, but how the fluid is moving. Now the fluid, how it is moving, it is very difficult to assess until and unless you put some marker in the fluid and see how the marker is evolving. And the very act of putting some marker in the fluid and studying how the flow is taking place is known as flow visualization. So there are different methods of flow visualization. Some very elementary but very fundamental. Others a bit more advanced, requiring advanced technology, but again based on the fundamental kinematic principles. So I will first talk about the ones which are classical and fundamental, and maybe one or two relatively more recent advancements on flow visualization. So the classical ones are related to the concepts of streamline, streak line, and path line. There is something which is also used along with this, known as timeline, but normally streamline, streak line, and path line are the three very important concepts associated with flow visualization. So to do that, what we need to do is as follows. Let us say there is a pipe or some device in which there is some fluid flow. What we are trying to see, or rather trying to imagine, because this is what you cannot see directly, you can only imagine that there are certain conceptual lines in the flow which are either of these. So the first the conceptual line that we talk about is the streamline. Again, these are certain concepts. I mean, the danger of knowing these concepts is that because all of you are familiar with this, you will have a general belief that you understand this quite well. There are certain issues that we will see that these are more subtle and possibly beyond the way in which you had earlier studied or understood this. So let us see the definition of streamline. So this is the an imaginary line. So this is very important because you cannot really have such a line in reality. Only an imaginary line in the flow field such that tangent to it at a point represents the velocity vector at that point at the specific instant of time. Normally, when we write a definition or a description, the way in which we perceive these is as if these are certain ways of beautifying and decorating the definition, the English words which are there in the definition. We will look into these English words one by one in the definition of streamline and see how they matter in reality. So first of all, an imaginary line. This is the first very, very important key phrase. It means that this line in reality doesn't exist. Next is in the flow field. That means somewhere where there is a region of influence given by a velocity description. Because field is a region of influence, so not at any arbitrary location. Such that tangent to it at any point represents the velocity vector at that point. This is something which is the heart and soul of the definition. So this is something which needs no further elaboration. What needs more strong emphasis is that at the specific instant of time. So what it means is that streamline is an instantaneous concept. It is an instantaneous concept in a way that it is defined only at a specific instant of time. So if we consider, say, by following this definition, this is what we construct as a streamline. Then the description is that, so if you draw a tangent to this line at this point, either way it could be front or back, doesn't matter, it will represent the velocity. I mean the sense whether it is towards the up or down is really not within the purview of the streamline. So let us say that this point where we are getting this velocity vector, this is defined by a position vector r. In a similar manner, with respect to the same origin, let us say we have a position vector which is r plus dr. The meaning of this is actually we are thinking of another point which is almost coincident with this, and here you will have a velocity which is different because the point is different and hence the tangent is different. So in this way, at different instants of time, at different positions at the same instant of time, you will get different velocity vectors as represented by the velocity at those points by which the streamline is passing. Now, if you draw this diagram in this way, by the triangle law of vector addition, you can simply say that this must be dr, right? So if this is dr, We have to remember one thing, this dr actually, I mean the name d or differentially small distance makes sure that these 2 points are virtually coincident. Just for the clarity in drawing, we have shown them separately. So when they are, see, if they are not coincident, then this black arrow is a chord. But in the limit that these 2 points are almost coincident, that this is differentially small, this chord tends to become a tangent to the streamline. So this is the definition of a tangent. So tangent is the limiting state of a chord when the 2 endpoints of the chord are virtually coincident. So if this becomes a tangent, then the direction of that will be same as the direction of this velocity vector, because by definition velocity vector is tangent to the streamline. So in the limiting state that we are considering, then if dr becomes along the tangent, then dr and v are in the same direction. If dr and v are in the same direction, then what we must have is dr cross v is a null vector, right? Why this cross product is a null vector? Because they are 2 vectors in the same direction, so their cross product has to be a null vector. So this is the most fundamental way by which we can depict the streamline, which is here. So now comes the role of the coordinate system. The role of the coordinate system comes in the fact that when you are having r in the Cartesian coordinate system, you represent these by x, y, and z coordinates. So dr is dx I dyj and dzk. So if you take now the cross product, which we can write in the determinant form, so ijk, then the components of dr and the components of the velocity vector. So this must be a null vector. This is our final summary. So when you have this final summary, we will now just make a simplification by expanding the determinant. So now when you have a null vector, all the components are individually 0, right? That is how this is a null vector. So this has to be 0, this has to be 0, and this has to be 0. So that means you have w dy is equal to v dz, w dx, this one, and v dx is equal to u dy. So now if you just take a commonality, so this will give you and this will give, sorry, So if you now combine all these, you will see that you have a common ratio which the three equations taken together leads to, and that is nothing but the so-called equation of the streamline. So we can write it with some clarity. So combining this, you have dx by u. So this has a formula all of you know, and u, v, w are known functions of position and time, and you can simply integrate this to get the equation of the streamline. Now, the most general are also functions of. So there could be a time factor associated with this. So once you integrate it partially by keeping time as fixed. So when you keep this time as fixed, that means that this equation is valid at a given instant of time. Okay. So once this is known to be valid at a given instant of time, that is the concept of the so-called instantaneous streamline. So streamline by definition is instantaneous streamline. At different instants passing through the same point, you will get different streamlines if the velocity is a function of time. There are certain additional confusing concepts that some of you may have come across in your earlier studies in the form of some terminology which is known as streamlined flow. So streamlined flow is something which is not actually restricting the definition of streamline. So it is a misnomer. It is not saying that flows with streamline and flows without streamline. All flows will have some streamlines because all flows will have some velocity vectors. All flows will have some velocity vectors, and these velocity vectors are defining the equation of the streamline. So what it means essentially is the fact that all flows have streamline, but all flows are not actually called a streamline flow. The flows where streamlines are very prominent and regular and maybe well aligned. So it's very subjective rather than objective, because it depends on how one perceives the flow. But somewhere where streamlines are ordered and regular and maybe to an extent geometrically patterned, so we can call those as streamlined flows. But it has nothing to do with the definition of streamline. The next concept that we will see is the streak line. So let us erase this part and get into streak line. So what is a streak line? Streak lines are essentially, let me put up the more formal way of defining this, then we will explain what it is. Locus of all fluid particles at a specific instant of time which at earlier instance of time passed through a common point. In books, the definition is normally written in a bit of a more convoluted way, but I have tried to simplify here to give a practical understanding of what it is from this description. So what it means is that, so let us now look into the description from backwards. So at some earlier instance of time, there is a common point identified. Say this is the common point. Through this, some particles passed. So say now it is time equal to 1 hour. So starting from time equal to 0 to time equal to 1 hour, different particles, fluid particles, passed through this identified point. So now that is at time equal to 1 hour, say, these particles, those particles which at different times, different earlier times passed through this, are now at different locations. Whatever say was, whatever passed through this at time equal to 0, say that is here. Now, whatever passed through this at time equal to 10 seconds, say it is now here. So the green colors are now where they are now. Whatever it passed through this red location at time equal to 20 seconds, 20 minutes, say is now here. Whatever it passed through this at say 30 minutes, time equal to 30 minutes is now here. Similarly, say this is 40 minutes. This is 50 minutes. What about 60 minutes? So at time equal to 60 minutes, that is currently the particle is just here, right? Because it is passing through the point. So whatever has passed through that point over the time from 0 to 60 minutes, at 60 minutes, whatever has passed through this, at 60 minutes itself, it is there only. So these green circles are nothing but markers of those particles now at 60 minutes, which at some earlier times passed through the red cross. So now if you just take a locus of this, just some locus. I'm drawing it a bit arbitrarily, just joining them in some way. So that locus we are calling as streak line. What is the similarity in the concept of streamline and streak line? What is the similarity in the concept of streamline and streak line? Can any one of you say what is the similarity? I'm not talking about dissimilarity.
So we are trying to capture at an instant of time.
At an instant of time, right? So that is the similarity that we are talking about. a specific instant of time. So at that specific instant of time, we are defining both the streamline and the straight line. I will try to get into the more commonalities, but we have so far avoided the most obvious question. And this question, I mean, this is the most obvious question, but this question is normally never addressed in undergraduate classes. So that most obvious question is that why do we require such a definition upfront? I mean, what would have happened had we never known this definition? Would sky fall on our head had we never known this? So to understand this, we have to have a practical feel of how experiments in fluid mechanics, flow visualization are very commonly done. Most common experiments of flow visualization. So let me put up such an example. Let us say that you have a pipe and you want to visualize the flow, how the fluid is flowing in the pipe. Say the fluid is water. So to do that, the most common experiment is that, let us say this pipe, just to visualize the flow, it is not a metallic pipe, but it is made of a transparent material. So the common transparent material for such experiments, you have something called as perspex or plexiglass. It is very much transparent, glassy like, but it's a plastic material or a polymeric material. So this is called as plexiglass. Glass is a misnomer. It is not glass. You can say that it is a transparent plastic. Now, to visualize the flow, we have to color the flow because our eye can distinguish a color. Otherwise, you know how the water is flowing. It is very difficult to. It is very difficult to distinguish different types of flow. Otherwise, so what we do is that we make a hole in this wall and use a colored dye. So colored dye is typically, I mean, you people are not that familiar, but when we were, say, in our junior school, I mean, say middle junior school, we had to write with fountain pens. You may have heard about fountain pens. So fountain pens have certain inks. So those inks are essentially colored dyes. So you have, say, blue ink, red ink, green ink, like that. With the advent of ballpoint pens, those are there, but not in common use. But those dyes are very much in use for these experiments. So the blue colored dye, there is an example. So if some of you want to do that experiment, if you want to buy it, you can buy in the name of a blue colored dye. I'm just giving you an example, thymol blue. Okay. So this is a blue colored dye, ink type of thing basically. By an injection syringe, you are injecting this one. Okay. So after you are injecting, say, I mean, you are allowing the dye to settle. Say for about 1 hour, you have gone out of the experimental room and you have done some other work, taken a cup of tea and come back, and you see a colored line. So this colored line, typically if it's a blue dye, it's a blue colored line. If it's a green dye, I mean blue, green, red, all types of dyes are there. You will get a red line, green line, etc. So these lines are representing what? These lines are representing the colored dye that you have injected into the fluid, the water, and which I mean they are representative of which fluid particles? they're representative of those particles. I mean, you have continuously injected these, right? This is not a one-time injection. This injection is taking place continuously. Normally, people will not do it manually for a long time. So you may have a programmable syringe, which is nowadays very common. Earlier, people used to do it manually, but now you can have a programmable syringe, I mean, which may be robotically controlled or controlled by some mechanism, by which this can continuously inject the dye. So the line that you see must be representative of those particles, fluid particles, which passed through the point of dye injection. Had they never passed through the point of dye injection, they would normally not get colored until and unless there is a diffusion across various layers of flow. If there is a diffusion across various layers of flow, the dye will get diffused, and then you will not get such a sharp line. But if you are getting such a sharp line, that means the dye is not getting diffused. And if the dye is not getting diffused, the only way in which you can see this clear color line is that it passed through this point. So this experimental depiction, maybe an idealized experiment, is reflected by this mathematical cum physical definition. Mathematical because it talks about a locus. This connect between practical experiments and the way in which we mathematically define things is extremely important. And if that is not there, you will just learn it as a useless concept and never try to apply this in practice. Now, before getting into the mathematical description of this, I would like to ask you one particular question, that given this experimental description, what are the conditions that you must fulfill in the experiments to ensure that it is indeed the strict line that is visualized in the practical experiments? See, this is the strict line is an idealized definition. What you see in the experiment is the practical reality, and there could be a gap between this idealized definition and what you see in practical reality. My question is, how should you try to conduct your experiments to minimize the gap between the idealized definition and what you practically see in experiment? Can any one of you give some idea on this?
So steady and laminar flow.
See, we have not yet studied about laminar flow. Steady flow is not required. So the first point you have said is not required. If it is there, it's there, but it is not required.
The density of the particle and the fluid should be more or less equal.
How do you ensure that? Say you are doing a practical experiment. Say I give you a job that I have made this plastic, transparent plastic pipe, arranged for some water flow, and say a slow flow of water. I mean, so that there is no vigorous intermixing between various layers, very slow controlled flow. That much I have provided you by some valving and pumping, etc. Now, what more you should do as a practical person to make sure what you are telling? So, what did you do in practice to minimize the gap between the practical scenario and the ideal definition? Somehow the voice is getting cracked. I do not know, is it my connectivity or something else? If there is a connectivity problem at your end, somebody else may also try to fill in.
Sir, instead of water, highly viscous fluid can be used.
No. I want to visualize water only. My objective is very clear. I want to visualize a slow flow of water in a pipe, which is made of a transparent material. So I have manufactured that, got this transparent material pipe manufactured, and I have made arrangements of pump, valve, etc. to have a controlled slow speed water flow. These two I have made. What more is required?
Sir, maybe I have to make sure that the common point does not vibrate or uh, does not change position with time or so.
Okay, before that, when I want to order for this die, I must check what is the density of this die. Right? When you order for a material, the material has certain properties. Like if you order for a piece of steel, I mean some weight of steel, that steel manufacturer will give you the composition, density, etc. If you want. If you do not want, the manufacturer may give nothing. But as a technical person, you have all the right to ask for that. So when you are purchasing this die, you must make sure not only the color, most important is that its density and composition. Why composition is because composition can also be such that it might have an influence on the variation of density. So that is why it is important, but most fundamentally density. So the density of this should practically be as close to the density of water as possible. I mean, you may not get it exactly the same, but a very small differential will actually not matter in a practical experiment, because the small differential will give rise to a relative flow if certain additional things are there. That means one additional thing is that you are doing the experiment for a very, very long time, where that density difference is actually creating a net flow. But in a reasonably short period over which you are doing the experiment, that will not matter. So that is regarding the die. The most, the other important aspects is somebody has given you that die with all that arrangement. Because if you are doing it in a lab and you have a say professor or teaching assistants or technical assistants supervising your lab work, this is that they will do with proper procurement and you may not have to bother. But what you have to bother with is how you are doing the experiment, because that is your act of doing the experiment. So there the major precaution is the delivery of this die. So first of all, this delivery has to be extremely controlled and slow. How controlled or how slow? Controlled or slow to an extent that at the point of injection, you already do not create a relative velocity between the water and the dye. So if you already create a relative velocity between the water and the dye, then the water and dye will move differently, because you have already created an initial velocity of the dye which is different from the velocity of water at that point. So it is something which in a good English we say a quiescent injection, or you can say a very controlled injection. So I mean it can be one of the very good designs of mechanism, that you can have an automated design of mechanism, so that you can have a kinematic push to the syringe. And manually, over the years people have been doing it manually, and that becomes a skill of the hand. If somebody is doing it very, very slowly and carefully, it is fine. And as one of you rightly pointed out, there is also a chance that while doing so, your hands may shake and you may actually drift from the point which is your target point. So all those things are possible. You can mechanize this with a very slow controlled injection to ensure that at the point of injection you have no relative velocity between the two. And then if the densities are same, you expect that over a short period of time, it will not, the dye will move along, the dye will not get significantly diffused, so that other locations which are not directly colored by the dye will also get a stint of the color because of the diffusion. Now diffusion is normally a very slow process, so it will take its own time to occur. It will occur very fast if the flow itself is not quiescent or not quite slow, and there is a vigorous mixing within the flow. That is the so-called hallmark of a turbulent flow, and we will study that more carefully later on. So if that is not the case, then over a short period of time the dye will not diffuse across to other regions, and you will get this line, idealized line that we are talking about. So I tried to highlight this to eliminate the disconnect between what we see in practice and what we learn as a theory, which in pen and paper is fine, is very good for passing exams, but it makes no value addition to our learning. The other concept that we will talk about before we come to a problem to describe these concepts more in terms of more concrete mathematical calculations is path line. Now this is a relatively straightforward definition. This is the locus of an identified fluid particle. So you have a fluid particle which is say identified at say time equal to 0 wherever in the flow field. So you are just tracking it and getting its locus. It is straightforward another way of giving a Lagrangian description to the flow. So path line is an experimental description of the Lagrangian viewpoint of flow. So the streamline, streak line, path line, we have studied them. There are certain commonalities, and to understand the commonalities the best, we will consider a special case. Which is a steady flow. So the steady flow means what? Steady flow means that at a given location the velocity is not changing with time at a given location. So let us say that you have a streamline passing through this point of dye injection, say Pi. At a given instant of time, this is an instantaneous streamline. If it is a steady flow, the velocity will not change with time, so this streamline will remain as it is. It will not change with time. And what is the hallmark of this line? So any fluid particle which was earlier here will be constrained to move along this only. Why? Because if it is a steady flow at all instants of time, you will have the velocity vectors like this. That means the particle has actually followed this line. Not only that, the locus of all the particles which at some instant of time had passed to this injection point will be constrained along this red line only, because the velocity is not changing with time. So it is all constrained to move along this. So what it means is that for a steady flow, the streamline, streak line, and path line are identical. Okay, streamline, streak line, path line, these are identical. So why are these identical? They are identical for a simple reason that the constraint along which these particles are moving, that is not changing with time. That is the fundamental physical basis of this. And because of them being identical, that is where actually the conceptual mistake comes when somebody doing experiment and seeing a colored line like this says that experimentally I have obtained a streamline. Actually, and fundamental concept wise, experimentally the person has obtained a streak line by definition, because I have clearly related how you do experiments of flow visualization with the definition of streak line. So if all those controls are fulfilled, experimentally you see a streak line. But if the flow is a steady flow, and what will happen is that initially no flow is steady, but what we call a steady flow is a flow where it takes only a very short time for the flow to become steady or time independent, and that how short it is much shorter as compared to the overall time scale of the flow. For example, if the flow is taking place over 1 hour, maybe within 1 second the flow has become steady. From 0 to 1 second it would have been unsteady, doesn't matter. Beyond 1 second it has become steady. So that type of flow. So when we are studying that type of flow, the streak line will actually also be streamline and path line, and therefore in those cases, although conceptually we make a mistake by saying that these are streamlines, but in reality those are actually streamlines. I mean, those are streamlines what you see in the flow field. So in that way, while this connectivity is there for steady flow, this connectivity is not there for unsteady flow, and it is possible to obtain their equations individually by putting into certain considerations, but they are clearly not the same for unsteady flow. So let us work out a problem to illustrate their difference. So let us say that you have a velocity field u is equal to x by t plus t0, v is equal to v0, which is a constant, and w equal to 0. So what we require is, number one, equation of streamline, or what is asked for, at time equal to t0. Number two, a particle is injected at a point x0 comma y0 at t equal to t0. Find its locus. And number three, that particles are continuously injected from at x0 y0 from t equal to t0 to now. So what is the equation of the colored line that you now see? Okay. So the original statement of the problem was a bit more formal. I have tried to make it a bit more informal so that it gives you a physical picture of what we are solving. The first part of the question is, of course, the most informal part, the simplest part to address, which is finding the equation of the streamline. So let us do that by a different color. Let me try to solve the problem. The exact integration differentiation I may not completely do, but I just want to give you the concept, and this is a very important problem, because by solving this problem you will get a conceptual physical feel of the difference between these three, which you will never get a feel if you do not solve a problem like this. So equation of, first of all, it's a two-dimensional flow because the W is 0. So we are restricted to this two-dimensional description of the streamline, dx by u equal to dy by v. So dx by x okay. So this is straightforward. Now, to do integration, certain more things are required. One is you have to freeze this time. So at what time? At t equal to t0. So this t you substitute at t0. And when you integrate it, this no more becomes part of the integration. V0 is also a constant, so it will come out of the integration. But what will be the limits of the integration? So this is where there is a incompleteness of the question one. See, sometimes, as a good student of the subject, you should also be able to pinpoint any lacuna in specifying the question. So it says equation of streamline, but it doesn't describe or it doesn't specify certain additional thing. What is that? You must constrain a point through which the streamline is passing, because otherwise there will be so many streamlines passing through so many points. So equation of streamline at this one, maybe we can add a rider here, passing through x0, y0. So that means that you can have your initial condition y equal to y0 and x equal to x0. The streamline is passing through that, and at the current coordinate x comma y, it is x and y. So now the integration is very straightforward, and so I will erase some part to make a space to write it. So let me just write it here in the free space. So you have 2t0 ln of x by x0 is equal to y minus y0 by v0. So you can write this y as a function of x or x as a function of y, whatever, but this is the equation of the streamline instantaneous streamline at time equal to t0, and it is also constrained to pass through this. Okay. So why I have put x0 comma y0 is because, see, this is a common point on which we have put some emphasis in both in all the three questions 1, 2 and 3. But even then you will see that the equations that you will get are different, and how they are different we will see very clearly if we solve the remaining ones. So question number 2, if we solve, I just freed some space, but if you recall, it is simply the locus of a particle which passed through x equal to x0 and time y equal to y0 at time equal to t0. So it's a Lagrangian description. So as per the this description is Eulerian description. So question number 2 is actually a mathematical transformation from Eulerian to Lagrangian. See, it is not written mathematically in this way, but all good students must be able to convert a physical picture to a very rigorous mathematical picture. So what you have here is an Eulerian description, and what you want as a solution of question number 2 is a Lagrangian description. So remember that what is the connect between the Lagrangian and the Eulerian description? The velocity at a point in the flow field at a particular time is nothing but same as the velocity of a fluid particle located at that point at that instant of time. So if that particle is symbolized as p, so you can write dxp dt is equal to this one, because the velocity of the particle is same as the velocity of the flow at that point, and similarly dyp dt, p for particle. So in books this p subscript is not normally given, but I wanted to highlight this and distinguish this from any arbitrary xy. This is actually talking about particles. So books will write dx dt, dy dt, etc. But that will not emphasize that what dx dt, what dy dt we are talking about. So now it is straightforward, and we have to keep in mind that when we write this x as x of particle, this x refers to x coordinate of that particle, because here the particle description and flow description has merged. So now you can integrate this. And you have to choose a time. So only thing is that at time equal to t0, it passed through x0, right? So if you now integrate it, so let me put a different color. So at time equal to t0, that is the initial location of the particle, xp is equal to x0. And at time equal to t, whatever is the current time, you want to see what is that x. So this integration will give you ln of x by x0 is equal to ln of t plus t0 by 2t0. So in other words, so let me just free some space from the bottom. this white writing pad I'm using for the only for the last 2-3 days. I used to use a different software, so I'm not really familiar how to scroll down and maybe use a longer page. I will figure it out so that because fluid mechanics will require lengthy derivation. So the earlier I figure out, the better it is. But by that time I will maybe make use of some of these free spaces to work.
Sir, you can add page on the top.
How
There
to
is,
do that? Can you tell? Which one? You can see
sir,
the.
just next to the undo, redo, and there is a page with plus sign
Okay.
at the top.
Great. So let me try that. Yeah, I clicked it. Hopefully it comes. Oh, great, very good.
And
So,
then
but the previous page is gone.
then you can click on
Then I
create
can click the
over
previous.
there.
Okay. So, but it is not possible to scroll down. That means when I go to the next page, the previous is not visible.
Yes.
Anyway, it's fine. It's okay. So let me complete this problem and this statement. So x by x0 is equal to t plus t0 by 2t0. So this is regarding the x. Similarly, what is regarding the y? So you have dyp is equal to v0 into dt. So you integrate at time equal to t0. You have y equal to y0, and at time equal to t, y equal to y. So this will give y minus y0 is equal to v0 into t minus t0. In fact, so these two together is the parametric description of the path line. But if you want to write y as a function of x, what you can do is you can just eliminate t. That means you get an expression for t from, say, this one. So t equal to something, and substitute that here. So once you do that, you will get y as a function of x. And the first observation is that y as a function of x is different from the y as a function of x that you got as a solution of question number one. And that difference is there because it is unsteady flow. So streamline and path line are not expected to be identical. Now let us go to the question number 3, which is the most interesting of the 3 questions. So the particles are continuously injected at a given point, again that same point, but the injection is now from time equal to t0 to time equal to t. So what you want really is to see the locus of all particles which at some point of time, which can be something, anything between t0 to t, passed through this point, right? So this is clearly a streak line equation that we are talking about. What is unknown here, that this identified point x0, y0, what is the time at which the particle is being injected? That is a variable. It could be anything between t0 to t. So you can say in in a mathematical way that ti is between t0 to t, okay, inclusive. But given that you know the ti, you can convert this to a Lagrangian description. That means you can write very similar to the previous one. I will just not write dxp dt, but I will mean the same. And I will write dy dt. This is exactly the same as what I had written here for solving the question number 2. Now, can you tell what is the most subtle difference? Although I have written the, and these also mean dxp dt, etc., dyp dt, meaning is not different. But what is the subtle difference? Can any one of you tell? That I have written this for solving question number 2. I have written the same thing for solving question number 3, and both questions will be solved by integrating this. But what is the subtle difference between the question number 2 and 3 in terms of, say, solving the problem?
Sir, T naught is variable, so we will have to eliminate T naught.
No, T naught is not a variable. T naught is a specific time, right? The dye injection starts at T naught, so it is specific. Say in the morning 9 o'clock, the dye injection starts in the lab. So that 9 o'clock is T naught.
Sir, in the second question, we were focusing on one particular particle, fluid particle. In this, fluid particles are continuously injected.
That is all right, but how will we address that in solving this problem? So let us try to integrate, and then we will see.
Sir, the time limit will be from Ti to T.
So if you put this up, yes, you are correct. So if you put this up, so you have to, so what you are doing, you are actually finding the locus of a particle, but not one particle, but no, whatever particles that passed through that x0, y0. So when did the particle pass through x0, y0? In the path line problem, it was a specific particle, so it passed at a specific time. Here, it is not a specific particle, so the particles under consideration had passed through the point x0, y0 at different times. So let that time be Ti, which is not fixed. Ti is constrained by this. So it's an arbitrary time, but arbitrary time and a fixed x0. And now the time is t as per the definition of the problem. And now say such a particle is located at x. Similarly, you have dy is equal to v0 dt. So at t equal to ti, you have y equal to y0, and at t equal to t, you have y equal to y. So you have ln of x by x0 is equal to ln of t plus t naught by ti plus t naught. And here it is y minus y0 is equal to v0 into. So what will be your answer? I mean, how you arrive at an answer of the equation of the straight line? The only parametric variable which you do not know is Ti. So this Ti you can eliminate by substituting the expression for Ti here. And then you will get y as a function of x at time equal to t. And that is your streak line. Okay. So now if you look at the three expressions, you will see typically question number 2 and 3, that is where that conceptual anomaly appears. In question number 2, we have eliminated t. In question number 3, we have eliminated ti. Why? In question number 2, we identified a particle, and therefore t time is a parameter of that particle, so given more time it will move more. In question number 3, we have identified a fixed time, final time, so this is no more a variable, but the duration over which the dye injection occurred at the identified point, that is itself a variable. So the nature of the variables has changed, and that is what you have to accommodate in your solution procedure. Okay. So I hope this problem was useful in describing the difference in concept of streamline, streak line, and path line. So next, what we will do is, so we have described the velocity, acceleration, etc. Next, what we will try to do is to understand the deformation of fluid. So deformation of fluid, what it means, first of all, why is it important? So when you say deformation of fluids, you have to give a physical basis to this by noting that if the fluid is subjected to a shear force, so any fluid may be subjected to two types of forces. One is a normal force, another is a tangential force or a shear force. If the fluid is subjected to a shear force, the fluid, no matter how small the shear is, will start deforming spontaneously. And that deformation is related to the velocity of the fluid. So this is how actually the force on the fluid is related to the motion, and we will all see that carefully when we discuss more details about the dynamics of flows. But for kinematics, we will not consider really the forces which are impacting the fluid motion. But what we are doubly sure is that if there is a tangential force, the fluid will be subjected to deformation, and therefore deformation is a very important way of assessing the impact of the force on the fluid. We should not also keep a sort of mental block by thinking that only tangential force can give rise to deformation. Normal force can also give rise to deformation, but possibly in that case, that deformation will not be an angular deformation, but mostly linear deformation, and that at the end will culminate in the form of a volumetric deformation. And the volumetric deformation of fluid is normally, in general, inevitable because fluids have compressibility. Whether compressibility is important or not is a secondary issue, but all fluids have compressibility. Maybe small or maybe significant. So studying the deformation in terms of linear, angular, volumetric, etc., is one of the very important, important measures of understanding the motion of flow. So we will start first with the description of linear deformation. See, the challenge is that deformation is something which we can hallmark only if we identify one particular collection of mass or volume. That only we can identify to deform. Otherwise, what will deform? So if we say fluid is deforming, it has no meaning. But if we have maybe an identified volume and element of fluid, and that volume element is deforming in volume, shape, etc., then that we can physically associate with deformation. Therefore, identifying a fluid element for deformation is a key. Okay, so we have a fluid element like this. This is just an element of fluid, or you may imagine a chunk of fluid. We have taken purposefully a rectangular chunk so that we can use a Cartesian system based description. But again, just like previous examples, we will generalize this and give it a vector expression which may be applied across the coordinates. But to get a simple physical picture, instead of just a mathematical description, we will consider this so this is the fluid element, three-dimensional fluid element. So what we will do is we will consider these two faces, which are located at delta x apart, and by viewing it from the front, we will just represent this by two lines. One is this one, which is at x. Another is this one, which is at x plus delta x. These are essentially two faces. Let us say that we allow a time of delta t and see how these faces are moving. Because it's linear deformation, we will just study that how it is getting linearly displaced. So over a period of time, this will get displaced by how much to a new location. Remember that that this location at this left face, we are having the velocity components as UVW. This is all everything we are doing by using Eulerian description. So at a given location, we have the velocity components UVW. So that means at this location x, say we have the x component of velocity u. So over a small time delta t, and that is the reason of taking a small time, u has not changed due to time. So it is simply u into delta t. What about the displacement of this face? Again, the time delta t is small, so you do not expect the velocity to change due to that small change in time. But you can what you can do is you can at least describe the change in velocity because of change in position, so that even at time t or over the time interval from t to t plus delta t, the instantaneous velocity may not have changed, but the local velocity is different at these points. And that local change is important because this local change is something that is actually giving rise to linear deformation, not a time dependent change. So local change we cannot ignore. If we ignore the local change, then that means there is no linear deformation. So if this is u at x equal to x, what is u at x equal to x plus delta x? That is this u plus So we are actually expanding this in Taylor series. So u plus the partial derivative of u with respect to x into delta x plus higher order terms. Remember that the only change from here to here is a function of x. So it is not changing y, although u is a function of y, z, etc. But the derivative with respect to x is mattering so far as the whatever is happening along x is concerned. So that is why the Taylor series expansion with we write the higher order terms as HOT. So this is the u at this location times delta t. So what is the so let us say that these faces, this whatever was the name of the face, say A, B. Now A has come to A prime. Sorry. A has come to A prime and B has come to B prime. So delta x, which was the distance between A and B, will be changed to something new, which is now the distance between A prime and B prime face. So what is that distance? That is the old delta x plus the change. Change means the difference in the movement between these two faces. So u plus so this is the difference in movement of the two faces, and that is the net change in delta x. So this will become delta x plus. So you can cancel some of the terms. Sorry, this is delta x somehow. Let me just use it. So this is delta x, might look like t. So delta x plus partial derivative of u with respect to x into delta x into delta t plus say higher order term into delta t. So what is the change? Let me erase this part so that I can write with some clarity. So what is that change? The change is what I'm just circling here. So this is the change in delta x. So change in delta x. Plus higher order term into delta. Okay. So how do you define strain? Change in length per unit length. So change divided by length, original length delta x. So this is the change in length per unit length. Right? So now you observe one thing which is very, very important for fluid kinematics. As you allow more and more time, the change will be more. See the first term in the right hand side. So first term in the right hand side, what you see is it is proportional to delta t. So you allow more delta t. I mean, instead of delta t, you make it a large time. You will see more and more change. So that is not a matter of interest because anyway, you allow more time, the deformation will be more. The fluid is continuously deformed. So what is the special thing about characterizing such deformation, which anyway will increase with time if you allow more time? So for fluid, the more important and interesting relevant kinematic parameter is not the deformation, but the rate of deformation. That is the rate at which this is changing. That means, in other words, let me just clear some space so that I can write it. And maybe so if you find out this change divided by delta x divided by delta t, that is per unit time, and you take the limits as delta t tends to 0 to get the rate, and we also take the limit as delta x tends to 0. So limit as delta t tends to 0 is something which is an obvious limit that we all believe that we should take, because we are trying to find out the rate of change at that instant. But why delta x tend to 0? Delta x tend to 0 because we are trying to characterize the linear deformation at a point. See, when we consider the volume, it was not a point, it was a volume of the liquid or the fluid. We wanted to give a description to the point, so we want to shrink the volume to a point so that we give the description of the rate of linear deformation at a point, and that is why we take that limit as delta x tends to 0. So when we do that, it will simply be, so first you divide by this delta t, so this will be this one valid at this point, x comma y comma z, because you have taken delta x tend to 0, and when you take delta x delta t all tending to 0, all the higher order terms, I mean, they will have some delta t or some delta x, and they will be tending to 0, or they will be negligible. So when you get this, so these, let us put up a symbol for this. Let us call it rate of linear deformation along x. So I have put a dot at the top. So this is the rate of linear deformation along x, or linear strain rate. So this is linear strain rate along x. So now once you know this, you can write what is that along y. It will be related to the y component of velocity, and the other one, it will be related to this component of velocity. Now, see, this linear deformation is a mathematical concept with which we started, but linear deformation is not something which physically is interesting for a fluid. For a fluid, we are all interested about change in volume, right? The length of a fluid is not something which is a physical, physically interesting parameter. Length of a piece of a solid is a physically interesting parameter, but length of fluid has no meaning. Volume of fluid has meaning, and therefore the sole purpose of motivation of this is actually to relate this with the change in volume of the fluid, and that we will take up in the next lecture. So maybe we have a few minutes where we can discuss some of the questions. So I will try to quit from the whiteboard so that I can come to the original Teams platform back and discuss. Somehow it is taking a bit time in my computer. Slow. So let us have some discussion on this. So before I forget, so you may be knowing the coming Thursday is an institute holiday. So you can see in the website of the institute. So coming Thursday, all classes are not likely to be held. Your individual subject teachers will tell you. But as per the standard practice for institute holiday, I am not going to take any class for the coming Thursday. And coming Monday, I may be on some leave for some work. So coming Monday also, I am not likely to teach the class. So the next class for this particular, advanced fluid mechanics will again be next Tuesday. This I wanted to tell before I forget. So now you can share your questions. You can raise your hand in the this online Teams page, and I can so just let me know if you have questions on anything that we have discussed so far. So I just want to ask you one thing, because there are so many of students here from different subject backgrounds, from different undergraduate education. How much of this, whatever I have discussed so far, is repetitive, not in terms of the title, I mean the topic that I am presenting, but in terms of the depth of the content which was covered in your undergraduate at different places. I mean, maybe first we can start with someone who has done undergraduate fluid mechanics at IIT Kharagpur, maybe in the mechanical department second year. Any one of you? You can just tell, because it is also because it's a heterogeneous class. I also have to be very sort of quite balancing in terms of fulfilling the needs of all the students who are participating in the course. So any one of you who has done undergraduate in mechanical second year fluid mechanics? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is there nobody from who has done mechanical undergraduate fluid mechanics here in this class? Okay, but done. Okay,
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
The mathematical concepts and the definitions were taught in the class in the second year, but relating it to a physical concepts were not there in at that time.
But problems you solved certain problems related to this, right? I mean, may not be
Yeah.
Deeply understanding what it is, but problem solving skill was developed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And who else from undergraduate second year who has done this course? Okay. Yes, tell.
Hello, sir.
Yes, yes.
Sir, I have done this fluid mechanics course in my MSc Mathematics.
Okay.
I have done it like in a mathematical way. I have solved the problems, but I have never realized the physical like aspect of all the definitions and all, which I am learning in this class.
Okay. Now in mathematics, applied mathematics, whatever fluid mechanics is taught, I mean, are these covered or not? I do not have much idea.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. These definitions
These
we have
definitions
already.
are covered, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anybody from who has done undergraduate fluid mechanics outside IIT Kharagpur?
Yes, sir. Sir, the mathematical concepts were taught, but the physical concepts were not.
Okay.
Sir, we used to follow your book only in our college, so we had a knowledge about this.
Okay. Anybody?
hello,
who,
sir.
Yes, yes. Tell me.
Sir, I have done my graduation from NIT Agartala. So during the second year, I have done fluid mechanics. But the thing is, we have only done the mathematical point of view. But the relation between mathematical and practical approach, we have that is, I have not covered in that semester. So yeah, that's is we are studying in this under you in this.
And anybody who has done these different courses earlier from say chemical engineering or other branches of engineering or physics, not mechanical engineering in undergraduate, either from IIT Kharagpur or elsewhere?
Sir, we did do this course in second year in aerospace engineering, and we didn't do the physical aspect that much. We just did the mathematical foundation, the mathematical way of solving problems.
And anyway, so if you have more, see these topics are such that you have to put a deep thought relating what you are mathematically writing and what does it physically mean. And until and unless that that gap is breached, the conceptual understanding of the subject is incomplete. So try to build up that, and that will be my objective throughout the teaching in this course. We will continue with the deformation of fluid, volumetric and angular deformation in the next class. So let us close it today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
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 Thank you, sir.